Now welcome to today's class. Today I have prepared for you a unit that is probability and statistic 2, and here I have a question that a random variable x as PDF given by, that is gx is equals to 24x squared with the provided range, so that we have the range there 0 or otherwise. So the question is that find the PDF of y is equals to 8x cube. So you've been told to find the PDF of y equals to 8x cube. Now how can you perform this? Now first and foremost, you are required to ensure that you make x in the function of y is equals to 8x cube to be the subject of the formula. So instead of y being the subject of the formula, you are required to make x to be the subject of the formula. So that is the first solution. So here I'll write solution here so that we can put that one down. So I'll just come here and say that I've told you that you make that is x the subject of the formula, and I think that one should not bring a problem. So I'll come and write that is y is equals to 8x cube. And how can I make x the subject of the formula there? By step number 1, dividing by 8, I divide by 8 so that I have x cube being equals to y over 8. That should be your first step. Now after that, you can make x to remain alone by so getting the cube root of the result. So when you get the cube root of the result there, you will finalize by having x being equals to, remember you can get the cube root of 8 because the cube root of 8 is just 2. So what you cannot get the cube root of it is y, and therefore you will leave it as cube root of y over 2 because cube root of 8 is just 2. Now after that, you are required to get the dx dy, sorry, you are required to get dx dy of the provided function after making x to be the subject of that formula. Now how can I get dx dy now? That one will mean that dx dy, you are required to differentiate this function here with respect to y. That is it. So to make that, you are required to write cube root of y over 2 in another way. Now how else can I make cube root of y? I can make cube root of y to appear in another way, which means the same thing, by so writing y raised to a third, because that's the cube root, but I divide it by 2. So that's the same. I'm doing such because by the time we shall now be finding dx dy, I must use this. Now after that, you can now get the first derivative of dx dy by so differentiating y cube, and when you do such, these are, that is y raised to a third, the third will come here, then you subtract 1 from the power. So when a third comes here, it will be a third y. Now you are required to subtract 1 from the power. So when you take a third minus 1, probably a third minus 1 is just negative 2 out of 3. So it is negative 2 out of 3. Then remember we are dividing by 2. So writing over 2 here is very tedious, and therefore to avoid that, you can just come here and multiply by the reciprocal. Remember 2 here, it is over 1. So the reciprocal of 2 over 1 is just 1 out of 2. Now when you do such, you can multiply a third by a half. That one will make you to end up by having 1 over 6, because 2 by 3 is 1 over 6, and y raised to negative 2 out of 3. Now after getting that is dx dy, what you are supposed to be doing is that you are supposed to now apply the concept here that states that for me to get that is gy, the concept is you are required to take gx the way you had it up here, that's this function here, then you multiply by that is dx dy. So you multiply by dx dy. That is it. So when you do such, you will end up by having now that my gx here, remember it was 24x squared, and therefore I'll be having 24. Remember x, I don't want x, and therefore I need to substitute x with a function that means the same. Remember here I had x as that is y raised to a third over 2, and therefore when I substitute it here, it will appear as that is y raised to a third over 2. But remember what x is squared, so you ensure that you put that square side there. Now after doing such, remember I have my dx dy, and what is it? My dx dy is this. So this is what I write. So I'll write here 1 over 6 y raised to negative 2 out of 3. Now after that, you can see the uniqueness, because this 6 here can cancel here and it goes therefore. Then you just solve this bracket, because this bracket here I can work it out. The square sign affect both the numerator as well as the denominator there. So when it affects the numerator, it will be a y raised to a third times 2. So a third times 2 is just 2 over 3. So I'll end up by having y 2 over out of 3. Now 2 raised to 2 is 4. So I'll have here 4. Then you just join with the rest. So remember 6 had gone. So I was remaining with y raised to negative 2 out of 3. Now from there you can see another uniqueness whereby this 4 can cancel. Then you can see the remainder here. You are required to use the law of indices here so that you can work this one out. And how can you work that one out? You will come here and just analyze by saying that when you have the same bases and the sign separating the two bases is a multiplication, because dotted sign just means multiplication, then what you need to be doing is to add the powers. So we'll end up here by saying just take one base, then just add the powers. So the powers is 2 out of 3 plus, remember negative is here, so negative outweighs a positive, and you will end up by having minus 2 out of 3. Now when you solve that, you will just finalize by having that is y 2 over 3 minus 2 over 3 probably is 0. You will end up by having y raised to 0, and you know that anything raised to 0 probably is 1, and therefore you just finalize by having your 1 as your gy. Now after getting 1 as your gy, what you are supposed to be doing is that we were told to find the that is a probability density function of the provided function, and therefore you are not supposed to just leave at this point. You are supposed to come here now and say that my gy now should be, you are required to come back here and begin here. Remember this one was the function of gx, and therefore my function of gy is 1. So just come here and write 1 here. After writing 1 there, now get the range. Remember the range begins from 0 when x is greater or equal to 0, and therefore you will come here and now find y now when x is 0. So when you put 0 here, probably 0 cube is 0. When you take 0 by 3, you will end up by having a 0. Therefore your range will start with a 0. Then remember it is a greater or equal to now x there. Then you come to the second part here. Remember the second part here now is that x is less or equal to a half. So to solve the value of y there, you just take x as half. So when you substitute x with the half, that one means that you will just have a half raised to 3, and half raised to 3 probably is 1 over 8. So that 1 over 8, when you multiply by 8, you will end up by having 1. So that one means my values of x will be from 0 up to 1. Then remember it is a 0 or otherwise. So you will just come here and write 0 or otherwise. After reaching there, you will have gotten the the probability density function of y being equals to 8xq. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. Don't fail to subscribe to receive more notifications concerning the events that I'll be putting in place there. As well, share to as many of your friends as possible, so as to also to benefit. Otherwise, let me see your comments there while meeting you in the next class.